So hot days, some cool finds, and some amazing history. Well, it's great to have you back here on Finding America. Now, some of you may seen a photo of one of our subscribers and really good friends, Wes Stringer, standing in front of the Alamo wearing his Finding America t-shirt. Now, that was such a cool photo, it gave me a great idea. Send us your photo featuring your Finding America t-shirt or your Finding America drop cloth, and I'll use them somewhere on the channel or possibly in a future Finding America video. Now, if you're interested in getting any Finding America apparel gear, the links to where you can get them are down below in the video description. Now, on to this week's hunt. Actually, I've got 1 1/3 hunts to show you this time, and you'll know what I mean in about a minute. Now, this past Sunday, Chris and I got up bright and early in order to try to beat the heat. Well, that plan did not work out very well, as the heat and the rock-hard ground, they pretty much beat us. And after just 3 hours, we both had to tap out. It was just brutal conditions. But we did make a few interesting finds, however, and I'm going to show this to you right now. Chris called me over. Let's go see what he's got here.
Something interesting.
What is it?
At first I thought it was a old light, but I turned it over and it's an old fishing reel.
Happy day.
Spinner.
Yep.
I don't know how I missed that last time. Pretty
probably
big.
Well, they just cut the grass.
Yeah.
Some of the grass was pretty high. We didn't get those areas. So, and yeah, we were just barely skimming the surface, Ron. There's so much more area to cover.
Oh, it's crazy.
Cool deal, man.
Yeah, it's something different.
Got a little bit of age to it, that's for sure.
Yeah, probably 50s.
Yep. Well, next signal was giving me a real nice high tone, about 1245, 1246. Dug down and I got this. Not sure what it goes to. Some type of escutcheon. Very heavy. Most likely brass. I was swinging underneath this big, huge shrub. It got a quarter signal, like 1246. And I dug down and this was sticking out like this. So I pulled it out and check it out. Boy, that's pretty awesome. It's in a base to something, maybe a candlestick. I don't know, something probably screwed into the top here. But that is very cool. Could have been a serving bowl even. I like that. Very cool piece. Oh, Chris called me over. Man, that is cool.
That's a big old gear.
Wow.
Thought it was a wheel to like an old toy train or something at first, but it's got too many teeth on it.
Yeah, that's really
neat.
That's pretty dang cool.
I pulled it out and I saw this thing sticking out too.
Yeah.
It's kind of
definitely has some age to that.
It's copper or brass too.
Well, pretty cool find.
Interesting hole.
Well, might notice something different right there. I'm using Chris's Equinox 600. Actually, I have a brand new Equinox 800 sitting at the house that I have not had time to charge. It just arrived from Calico. Calico sent me the Equinox 800 to test and review. I'm going to take it to a bunch of places where I've really beat them hard with the Etrac and see how it does. But so far, really digging the Equinox. And I got a 1314. It's about 6 inches down. I had to go under all these roots and it finally popped out. Check that out. That's my first good find with the Equinox. That is pretty awesome. Very fancy. And here's the backside. So it's a little sash buckle, a little Victorian. And it is a beauty. It probably would have joined in with another half just like this from the other side. I'll get it cleaned up, but I'm going to stick this in my fragile box and we'll get it cleaned up and give you a better look at it. But great signal, just real solid, and love the recovery speed on this Equinox too. Well, thankfully we had a pretty decent rain a couple days later, and I was able to get out one more time. So I grabbed my gear and I headed out to one of my favorite local dig-it-all spots. And I actually had a really good day, and I found some really interesting finds. Well, it is bright and early. The temperatures are awesome right now. It's like 65, and I know it's not going to last, so we're supposed to get up in the 90s again. And my first signal got a 1224. Normally going to be in a square tab range, pull tab, but I always dig those 20s. There's always sometimes something really interesting comes out. And check it out. I put my dirt on the drop cloth and looked down the hole, and I checked this little miniature padlock out. That's pretty cool. Honestly, I think that's the smallest one I've ever found. That is really neat. But I'll get it cleaned up and give you a better look at it. But that's a nice way to start the morning. Well, got a nice 1240 signal. I was looking for a weedy. I popped the plug and it was sitting just like that in the hole. So, oh yeah, definitely a weedy. Let's see if I can get a date on this thing. Yeah, it looks like a 42. Boy, that's a pretty bright green 42 there. Alright, we'll take that. Well, next signal kept ringing iron, but it just had a really nice high tone. And I'm like, well, let me just dig it. First coin I popped out, I looked down there and there was a coin sitting there. And it was a 55 weedy. Then I checked my hole, there was still another high tone in there above the iron. And I pulled out a second weedy, got a 45. So there's nothing wrong with that, 2 weedies in one hole. Well, I had another 1224, 1225 signal, and it was pretty deep. I had to go down about 8 inches. And it finally popped out on my drop cloth here. And it's a pretty cool find. Definitely goes way back. This is a early Model T valve stem cap for the wheel and tire, so always enjoy digging these. When these show up in your hole, you know you're in a good spot. There's definitely more old stuff to be found. Next signal's 1238, 1239. Right in the wheat penny range. Wasn't very deep, about 3 inches. It was pretty cool. Definitely an old piece of decorative, it's not iron, but decorative metal. Might have come off an old stove. Very cool piece. I like it a lot. This is kind of interesting. I was getting a high tone. It was reading kind of big, but it was really, other times it was real tight, ringing in a high tone coin signal, but it just kept getting deeper and deeper, and I thought, man, here comes another mason jar lid, but it isn't. Check out what's in that hole. It is crazy. It's heavy as all get out. I moved it around once it broke loose, but look at this thing. I bet you it's threaded here, but almost like a handle to a lever, or it's really heavy. But I've never dug one of those up. I'll have to clean it up. I'm not sure if I'll be able to figure out what this is. Reminds me of a shifter knob, but boy, it's really heavy, really big. Might be to some sort of machinery, but very cool. And I put it down there about 9-10 inches before it finally broke loose. Sometimes it's the little things that you find that really make your day. And this next find, this is one of them. Well, might have something interesting here. Got a 1213 signal here, about 4 inches down. And 1213 on the Etrac is spot on in nickel. So I was hoping for a buff or something like that, but ended up getting this on my drop cloth. I don't know if you can see it yet. I thought it was going to be an elongated penny, but it's some sort of a tag, but I wiped a little bit off and it does have some writing, but I don't know. I'm going to have to brush it off a little bit more, and I will be right back to you. Well, I don't know if this is going to show up. I had to get a magnifying glass out. Yeah, I've got those 50-year-old eyes now. But Over here in cursive it says Perry and then MFG Manufacturing. In the center is a Maltese or iron cross shaped symbol with Perry going vertically and horizontally on the cross. And on the bottom here, I believe it says Annapolis, Maryland. So, this is my favorite kind of find. I get to go check it out and do a little research and find out what the heck this tag once attached to. Very cool. I was getting a quarter, $half signal, 1245, 1246, even up to 1248. Dug down and saw part of it and carefully dug it out, and pretty cool piece. Well, that was a nice 6-shooter some kid had. Very nice and ornate, and very well preserved too. But I like digging that. Takes me back to my younger days. Back when I was 45. Now this next find I'm going to show you is actually one of my all-time favorite finds I've ever made. And I found it a couple of years ago. And I just wanted to share it with you because it's such a special find to me. And some of you may have seen this on my channel's community tab. Now be sure to check out my community tab regularly. I'm always trying to put different and interesting things on there during the week in between each video. Now I dug this item with Chris. We were hunting in a public park about 2 years ago. It was only 2 inches down. I'm going to tell you, when I found this, it really set me back on my heels. Now that is a 1907 United States Post Office box door. Solid brass, still has the original glass intact. How to get there? I have absolutely no idea, but I'm really glad it did. So when I was dusting this item off to share with you, I thought this might be a good opportunity to learn some interesting history about the United States Postal System. Now the United States Postal System dates way back, matter of fact to the year 1792, and was created by the Post Office Act. And at that time, the U.S. mail was the only way to officially send money. Now this was so important to the country that to ensure that the mail was safely delivered, mail thieves that were found guilty, yeah, they were put to death. Well, in 1799, Congress decided to lessen the severity of the penalty for first-time offenders. Now, they would receive a public whipping and up to 10 years in prison. Second-time offenders, they still put them to death. And this punishment remained unchanged until 1872. In 1958, New York City jeweler Harry Winston trusted the United States Postal Service so much that when he decided to donate the Hope Diamond to the Smithsonian Institute, he mailed it in. Now, he paid $2.44 for first-class postage, and he paid $142.05 for $1 million worth of insurance. And the Hope Diamond arrived at the Institute without incident. Oh, and by the way, the Hope Diamond now is worth $350 million. Oh, and speaking of money, the current Postmaster General is the highest paid federal employee of the United States government, earning $277,000 a year and second only to the President of the United States. In 1863, during the Civil War, the only way to get news of your loved ones that were battling in the war was to get it through the United States postal system. And the only way to get your mail was to make a trip to the post office. Well, that winter of 1863 was an especially cold one, and a postal clerk called Joseph Briggs in Cleveland, Ohio, came up with an idea called City Free Delivery after watching the long lines of women standing outside the post office in the cold weather waiting to get in. With City Free Delivery, the post office began delivering the mail directly to the homes in the cities. It became a huge success and it spread all across the country. One other thing you might not know, there was another thing invented during the Civil War for the post office, and that was money orders. Now these were needed by the Union soldiers to safely send their money to their loved ones back home. Now, even though they now delivered mail to homes, the mail carriers were only allowed to hand over the mail to the people that it was directly addressed to. So if they came to deliver the mail and the person wasn't home, they had to wait and wait, or resume their routine and circle until that person finally got home. So in 1923, and I have no idea why it took them this long, all U.S. homes were required to have a mailbox or a slot in the door for the mailman to deliver mail to. So finally, the mail carrier didn't have to worry about where the homeowner was, just their dogs. Well, this next one I just dug out of curiosity because it was just such a nice high-tone iron signal, and that's what it turned out to be. Look at that bad boy. Big old hook. Pretty cool. Probably some tow hook, some old tow hook from a tow chain. But pretty cool piece. Never know what's going to come out of that hole. Well, I was getting a 1240. I was about 5-6 inches down, and didn't know what to expect. It's kind of a bigger signal, but check it out. An old printing plate. The only thing I can make out right now is it says stepping on the top there, and I'll have to see if I can figure these out. But very cool piece. Just part to a big printing plate. I like digging these up, especially when they have some kind of cool advertisement on them. So, very interesting find. Well, this thing was ringing in 1223, which is going to be kind of the square tab range, a little bit higher maybe, but I like to dig them in the 20s. They're always sometimes interesting, and this one's no exception. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I thought it was a cap to a, an old foil tube or something, but it isn't. Maybe some type of snap. Not totally certain, but a very cool design on it. Definitely has some good age on it too. Well, next thing we'll ring up a nice tight 1240. Hoping for a Wheatie, and that's exactly what I found. I wiped it off already, but it came out real nice and clean. It's an early one too. Looks like it's 1918. Very nice. Well, the next signal was ringing in a pretty good high tone, about a 1244 to 1246, and I scooped out a bunch of dirt on my drop cloth here, and check it out. I just grabbed the camera because I've got something big and round. Don't know what it is yet. Now I do. You see that? Now these were real popular, especially back in the 50s. Used to be able to have these personalized. These are, sometimes they were advertising tokens, sometimes people just put their names on them. But they have the little star in the center. I'm gonna have to brush it off to be able to read it, but that's awesome. I like finding these because you never know what's going to be on it. So I'll be right back when I get the brush on it. Well, there you go. It cleaned up pretty nicely. Does have a name on it, James E. Holbert. And in the center it has a horseshoe and good luck. Now over here, I thought he was kind enough to leave us a date, but I thought it was 1942, but it appears to be 1442. No idea what the significance of that is. People could put in whatever they wanted to. They would have machines that would stamp these out. And on the other side, it has an American flag, which I think is very fitting for finding America. Well, I had to go really deep for this one. About 10 inches down, got a 1238. It's going to be in the zinc penny range. But I kept digging, kept telling me to go a little further, and I finally got down to it. Hopefully you can see it there. And let me go ahead and pull it out. Oh yeah, I think it's a printing plate. Oh dang, I like that. Let me get this brushed off and I will be right back. Oh, this is an awesome piece of printing plate. Boy, I wish I had the whole thing. It says money and then SA. So I don't know if it's like money savings, but look at the border around this piece. It's amazing the detail that they put into these things and how much work it must have been to do these just for an ad, you know, that ran that week. So many printing plates made, and I love finding them, and this is the second one today, so I'm pretty stoked about that. But boy, that is a beautiful piece. And the backside, pretty standard. These would fit into the boards. I'd put them on and lay out the page and everything. It's a very cool piece. Very happy to have that. I love old printing plates. So I tell you what, this is pretty funny. I decided, okay, last signal. It's around high noon now. It's starting to get really hot. We're in the 90s, so I'm calling it a day. And I said, last signal, and I dug up that. And I said, boy, that sure looks familiar. And I went back in my pouch, and sure enough, it's a match, and it's 100 yards away. It's just crazy. I'm entirely on the opposite side of this field, and I found the other side of the 6-shooter barrel. That's pretty cool. So there you go. This week's video, signed, sealed, and delivered. And I really hope you enjoyed this video, because I have an absolute blast putting them together for you each week. Now please don't go anywhere just yet. I've got some very cool historic photos coming up in about 7 seconds. So please remember, history always makes I find a treasure, and I cannot wait to see you back here next week on Finding America.